this is the current build that I have for Dawn of Djinn version 2. And a lot of the big differences that between version 1 and version 2 is a whole new set of classes. And you may notice a couple of Djinns being a bit different here and there. Now, I gotta say right now, this isn't final. There is room for this to change. Every time I think that I'm finally done messing with the Djinns, I kind of think of, oh, if I move one Djinn over here, if I name this Djinn something else and move his ability to a different Djinn, things be slightly more balanced. So there's a possibility that some of these Djinns won't exist in the final version of version 2 of Dawn of Djinn. Also, coincidentally, but works to my favor, none of the Grand Djinns are here. So, that surprise isn't getting spoiled today. Now that being said, I'll go in like this and see how I feel going forward. So I'm just gonna get into some random monster battles in the pseudo multiplayer mode and see what happens. So, also forgot that like it has save files from version 1, but not all the items are implemented in version 2, so things may look a little weird with my item setup. We'll just be ignoring that for the most part. But I guess starting off with, I'll go one by one, talk about the major difference between each party member, because with different default classes, I tend to make the adepts play a little differently. Isaac is a lot more defensive than his normal stats. Like his vanilla knight class is just a good blend between offense and defense. While in here, Isaac gets to be a lot more defensive, a lot more supportive, in exchange for some of the speed and attack that you would normally have. And you can see with a synergy, we got a nice blend of earth and plant-based abilities. Punchi is actually something that's exclusive to having 4 or more Djinnies. It's just normally 4 and that. In addition, when you get 4 Djinnies in the earth element class, Cure gets upgraded into an AoE healing called Nurture. It's a little bit weaker than Wish, both in terms of the amount it heals and just the fact that it doesn't heal everyone for the same exact amount. But it's interesting to play around with. Also, Isaac, Earth Adepts will get Restore. I forgot to actually change that into an Earth icon. Well, good to catch that now instead of later, I suppose. While Water keeps the poison. Fall that out of the way. Instead of having Regan Rock, he has Root, which is a slightly weaker Regan Rock line, but in exchange it has a possibility of actually healing. Now the Trickster line, as I call it, is kind of interesting. Sort of similar to Ivan normally. You may notice that he's a bit more slightly more defensive than normal, but he basically becomes like a glass cannon in the magical aspect. Let me just hop on over to Garrett and think it'll make a little more sense. Garrett is probably one of the most drastically different adepts between version 1 and version 2 of Dawn of Djinn. He becomes a fast, hard-hitting but frail physical attacker. As you may be able to tell from the stats on the screen there. While with his defenses it may not seem like he's that frail, he has less HP than usual. So how I tried to make the whole Garrett is physical and Ivan is magic based was when making them frail, Garrett has slightly more defense than Ivan, but Ivan has slightly more HP than Garrett. His synergy points are still the same, so there's that to worry about as well. And I guess while I'm just standing on the screen and talking about people instead of actually battling. Last but not least is Mia. She's a bit of a harder to describe because I actually have to be looking at the numbers in the editor to really remember exactly how it works, but she's a bit faster than normal. She's kind of like an all-rounder. Maybe like a magic tank where like she's not exactly fast, but she can take a hit and can do. And the synergy options that you may not be able to tell from her attack stat, but when we actually look at the synergy options she has, she's much more of an attacker than she was in Djinn 1 and Vanilla Golden Sun as a whole. So I guess it might be better to wait until I actually get her to actually showcase Root. Also the fact that I kind of split the support moves, so like Earth gets Protect, Wind gets Resist, and Fire gets the Impact line. Yeah, as you can see here, Mia's a bit weird. Like, we have 4 Mercury Djinnies here, but we don't have Wish. That's because Isaac is the AoE healer. Wish isn't completely gone from Djinn version 2, but you'll have to be a little bit more experimental with your classes to get access to it. In the meantime though, we have the Geyser line, which is kind of like a water version of Fume. And as you can see, we had all these support options that didn't normally exist for Mia and Djinn, like the ability to sleep, the ability to seal, both things that are normally exclusive to Ivan. I gotta remember to make that water. Not that it matters for anything besides the visual point. She does still have the ability to heal a single target. So in that kind of aspect, it's kind of like Isaac and Mia kind of trade roles in the healing sense. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Bohaya Rain, I don't think we actually exist in version 1, but it's tied to some multi-elemental classes, and I don't think we've really had an opportunity to play around with it yet in the stream series. But there's the rally that I was talking about, Fatigue for dropping attack. The others have means to drop defense and resistance as well, but they're kind of hidden in the actual moves. What do I want to play around with first, though? I guess we'll do Bohaya Rain and then Fury Dash, because I get the feeling that we'll probably be finishing this guy off before he can actually do anything to us. Okay, but it's going to be really interesting to talk about Fury Dash's line. Oh wow, yeah. That was incredibly fast. I know we have late game stats, but I kind of got caught off guard. But yeah, as you see, having access to Punji, as we saw earlier on in the stream today, it lowers defense as well as doing damage. And for Ivan, when we have 4 Djinnies, when we have less than 4 Djinnies, you would normally have access to the raid line. But just as soon as we get 4 Djinni, that gets upgraded to the Dazzle line, which does damage and drop resist. In addition, he has 2 new crippling abilities that didn't normally exist in Djinn version 1. Mostly because I was scared of Poison and Paralysis being pretty broken. But I guess between the playtesting I'd done on stream and other cases, it doesn't seem too bad. If I find in playtesting that seems too broken, I might just change my mind. But it worked for Reloaded, so it's definitely possible to make it work here. Poison in particular, I'm just worried because, like in Pokemon games, it does gradual damage based on, it does a percentage of the foe's HP. Venom is especially pretty broken because I believe it does 4%. I think it does a large, I have to double check the numbers, but it does a large amount And I think we can wait a little bit longer before showing off the Djinn. Probably gonna switch around wide seal. I guess now's a good time as any to showcase Fairy Dash. This is probably the move that will probably get a couple changes before the final version, but it's the strongest attacking synergy that's not a multiplier. Well, if we maybe we'll get to see the full thing if it doesn't just completely obliterate the enemy as soon as it attacks it. I forgot, I wasn't paying enough attention, but I think we saw how we actually got HP back from that. Now, it's not a guaranteed shot. Also, yeah, Smoke and Fog is kind of a new line that Tornado upgrades into for Ivan. That does damage and eludes. I figured I'd bring that up as well. Yeah, let's just throw a Geyser your way. I think I'll wait into the next battle. Surely after a couple more battles we'll actually get into a boss. Sorry if I'm just blabbling too much, but even a lot has changed between version 1 and version 2, just in the base classes, so I just feel like I'm worried about isolating people if I don't explain things. But yeah, you can see you get fully restored. Now, I don't know what it is, I did not have this much luck with it actually healing HP in other playtests. If it keeps happening this frequently, I might have to do something to nerf it, because it could probably be pretty broken to just heal off any damage you could, but I could have sworn in previous tests of the moves, like, it would just never trigger, and it's like, if it heals a lot but it frequently triggers, then fine. That works for me. But like, I still haven't implemented any new enemies, or any enemies that existed from Dawn of Djinn version 1 into this yet, so there's definitely still plenty of room for experimentation, to find tweaks and all that. There's still a lot to play around with. Now let's see if this enemy survives long enough to showcase Fairy Dash. It's a strong amount of damage, but also boosts their attack. Now, I'm trying to figure out a good balance, because like the whole gimmick I want to have with it, like if I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted, the gimmick would be that he does a lot of damage but also hurts himself. But that's not something that existed in the game's code until Lost Age, if it even exists in that. So I was trying to find a way to kind of implement that in what Golden Sun naturally has, without like making it too intimidating, making it a situation of like, oh, this move, like, sure, this move does a lot of damage, but I don't need to do that much damage. I could just use a slightly weaker move and have less of a trade back. So I'm still playing around with trying to find a balance in that. And then one of the ideas I have pondering around in my mind to actually make that work is, like, instead of boosting attack, just make it, just like when an enemy gets hit, just give them 2 turns the following turn. Similar effect, but I'm not sure if that's better or worse. Because with this, I suppose, like, you could also, like, metagame it and, like, do your Fury Dash and then use a break that could, like, take away the boost, and vice versa. You know, why am I just doing standard attacks when the whole point is to showcase new things here? I think I've gotten everything I want out of talking about the depth, so maybe I'll showcase a little bit of the Djinns. So, Rapid is the same. Fun fact, I was considering messing around with Rapid and like having a different Djinn do the healing with a secondary effect, but the timing you get Rapid right before the boss, I just couldn't find something else that really worked as well. And it's kind of, I guess it also kind of makes a good trade-off, considering Mia no longer does AoE healing, so it gives you even more incentive to use the Djinn. Let's see what else. Ginseng, I think, is replacing Jolt. And as you can see, like, we got Zen instead. Like, I kind of want to still keep the whole gimmick from version 1 with the Cyrils fight, so that's the only reason I'm giving it defense boost Djinn early. I'm not sure if you could tell when we used it before though, but Sen is not as strong as Chasm. It is a lot closer to Granite from Vanilla Golden Sun, where it only blocks 50% damage instead of the whole 100, or like the whole 90% damage. Fuel, I think, was a Djinn that was very much needed early in Dawn of Djinn. I'm a little concerned that, like, in a late game scenario like this where you have almost any other Djinn, that it becomes not as useful as a result, but there's still time to mess around, and yeah, I did use Paralyze, but it just didn't work. Cascade is another of those Djinns that I'm really trying to find a balance to, that I get the feeling I'm going to have to tweak a little bit more before the end. Also, Blanket kind of got the nerf. Like, I finally decided to get rid of the sleep secondary effect in exchange. Like, this problem was not necessarily with getting sleep so early, because sleep, I've noticed with playtesting it in Dawn of Djinn version 1 that sleep was just fine. It's fine, wasn't too broken or anything like that. Downside I see was that you got the Djinn before getting the synergy to put things to sleep, so kind of part of the reason why I pushed it back a bit. Plus there's already Djinns later on you get that also puts things to sleep, but better. As you're gonna see here, I haven't even got around to implementing secondary effects on the tier 4 summons quite yet, because I'm not still trying to figure out how I want it, if I want to rework summons or just keep them the way they are. Probably can at least use Fog and buy myself a little time. Oh, didn't think I had this before. Glad to see that that actually fits in the limits. No, cool, we get to see that, like, he actually does start with your normal lava shot, and more so upgrades. I guess one thing worth mentioning, like Dawn of Djinn version 2, I definitely feel like I'm doubling down on the whole fact that synergies upgrade in the stronger versions as you get stronger classes. Oh, and I guess this is what I get for playing with fire and just having so low stats. Wow, Isaac is the slowest one here. Ginseng. Also, I don't have any healing because oh boy, no, I just need more synergy on Garrett in general. You don't really need the help, but I'll take any synergy points wherever I can get them. But Ivan kinda needs to be alive, so we can use Void. Oh, okay. Sure, you just heal triple the damage that you're supposed to. I see how it is. Just be that way. In hindsight, I think the reason that happens is because normally Djinn abilities like take, when you're doing elemental something, it takes the boost in the results, and because we did some summoning, that healing gets boosted by the power boost of a summon, as well as... Actually, what am I doing? Ivan's up. You don't want the attack boost? I'm gonna just assume so. You need to go... It'd be cool if any of these go. I wasn't expecting to actually have to worry and try in this. Actually, that was dumb. I should have done Fury Dash on, you know, the guy that was already boosted, but maybe not, because Ivan's just dead again. This is probably one of those things that are way too strong for its own good, but I'll take it. I'll take paralyzing anything that could be an issue. Like that. Oh, that... Not exactly a good situation because of how little synergy Garrett has, but... This guys are supposed to be stronger, but... Yeah, I reworked Revive into being a fire exclusive thing, so both Tyrell Rebirth and Rebirth now are tied to Gary, which I'm not sure if I personally feel makes for an interesting mechanic. I'm not sure if it's a good mechanic, but it's kind of interesting that the glass cannon has the revival spells. Makes you be a little more cautious about just throwing damage to the wind. I guess in theory is what I'm going for. We'll see how well it actually works in execution. Alright. Could use the health. Let's see if Nurture or Root does the trick now. And Pyro is basically Java, by the way. I've just been debating whether or not to actually make it heal like Java used to. It just kind of feels like a case where, like, obviously it's not broken because it works with Java, but I'm not sure if it really fits in the theme of Pyro being like, put on a fireworks show to motivate the ally to move twice. Okay, so that healed, but it wasn't a full heal because it died, and how I've noticed is that when something dies from a healing move, you only recover the amount of damage that it would have done. The amount of HP, you only heal the amount of HP that it has left. Alright. So, like, I gotta double check. I thought Boom might have been a resist drop, but I'm not sure if I made it. Changed it back into bypassing defense. Probably because Fatigue still drops resist. Or if I just forgot to update that text. I'm kind of paranoid that it might be the other. Yeah, I don't think we showcased Hex. That reminds me, I didn't finish explaining why I changed Blanket. Like, I wanted to make it a situation where every Djinn, where, like, you have access to dropping defense, dropping attack, and dropping resistance early on in the game. I've been kind of debating, Flint doesn't exactly work the way that it used to in version 1. Like, it doesn't drop defense anymore, instead of kind of works like Pewter, but I've been debating whether to make it drop defense or keep the effect that I have on it now. So that's why Blanket has the defense dropping, just to cover for the fact that Flint might not drop defense anymore. Heck, like, I'm kind of like only keeping Flint named Flint out of Golden Sun Novelty, and I'm kind of like half tempted to completely embrace the pewter and make it that, but all just speculation at this point. Alright. Oh wow, I've been using so many Djinns and I have not been summoning those Djinns. You can kind of tell where my priorities are at the moment. And I think this is going to be the last battle, because I think I, like, messed around with the classes, the synergies, and the Djinns quite a bit already. And that should be more than good enough for a 2-hour stream at this point. I don't even know, like, I wasn't even planning on editing this. Just planning on uploading it as is, but with just how all over the place I am, and how long this probably is of a section. Kind of thinking that I kind of gotta. Oh yeah, maybe the lack of a weapon is part of the reason why, you know, I'm not doing a lot of damage with my attacking Djinns. That could be the part of the issue, I suppose. I'm gonna regret this, but I can't shake the feeling that it's weak to fire. Okay, it's definitely not weak to fire. I'm thinking of a different enemy that appears in the same area, but it's fine, we took it out. So as far as I'm concerned, it works. Attacks should probably be enough to take you out, but oh, I never showcased Puff or Boom. Like, this is basically the volcano line. Oh, not enough Djinns. Puff and Boom are basically the volcano, are new synergies I made that are basically the wind equivalent of volcano. Before I realized just how similar that is to Slash, which, you know, already exists. But the initial plan was to make Boom the way Geyser is now, but with Wind, where just like single target but does a ton of damage like Fume does. But somewhere along the line I decided to like move that over to Mia, to have her have this thing, and Ivan ends up having the whole, and that's how Ivan ends up with Boom instead. Kind of like running out of room to mess around with. Especially because my Reviver is dead. I guess I have a Water of Life. And, you know, part of the problem, I think, maybe I'll give him more synergy points and or something else, because I know part of the problem is, like, he goes through his energy pretty fast as is, so with how costly Revive is, or excuse me, Rebirth, is as a synergy spell, I kind of wonder if that's going to work. I mean, but this is what playtesting is for, is to figure out, to see actually how things play out in execution.